Hello and welcome. This is today's tutorial in a series of many tutorials on how to create your own program using Python and utilizing the Qt designer to design your graphical user interface. And then with the help of the PyQt5 library, we link the Python program with the graphical user interface to create one application that can be exported as an executable and distributed under free open source licenses. So this is the Qt designer. Basically, it's available for Windows and Mac. It's free. You can download it and install it. The link is in the description. So let's go ahead and start it up. So when you start it up, this is what you get. You have your widget box, your editor, your object inspector over here, and then you got your property editor and your resources, action editor, and signal. That's pretty much all there is to it. We'll get to each one of these sections as we go along. So the first thing is you start your program. You want to create a new file, and this is where you get your templates. So you have a dialog with buttons, dialog with side buttons, dialog without buttons. You got your main window and you got widget. So which one should you use? It depends on what you like, basically, because with any of them there is a certain functionality that is not available with other ones. However, with clever programming, you can pretty much make it do whatever you want. So the main thing is the main window, that's what I usually use, because the only thing that is this has a benefit on the other ones where it gives you a toolbar and an action bar. So this at the top here is an action bar. Okay, if you double tap here and you can write file, and then you can create a menu, for example, open, save, and then you can add more to it. For example, we can add a separator and exit. Okay, with PyQt designer, if you press Ctrl R, it will run your application or run your graphical user interface so you can test it. I mean, it cannot do any functionality, but for example, these are easier functionality where you can click something or it shows you a menu, but none of the buttons do anything, and that's what this is used for. And the second thing that the main window has a advantage over other templates is you can right click and add a toolbar, and that toolbar is basically allowing you to add actions to it. So for example, I can go to the action editor, which has my actions. So the action editor has all these actions that I add here. So for example, if I add settings, themes, about, they all show up here. So for example, I want to add the action. I just can click and drag it and drop it there, and now my action is there. The other thing with the toolbar is that you can click and drag it to the side, drag it to the bottom and to the top. We can disable that feature, especially with software that you want to have just a toolbar and you don't want it to be movable. You just come down to the property editor. So the property editor has all the options pretty much for a particular object. So our object here is the toolbar. We can click it and all the properties show up, from language to tooltip, title, object name, size, fonts, everything pretty much is here, as well as icons. So with these ones, what you can do in the action editor is you can right click and edit and go to theme, or you can check icons. So for example, you can right click here, and this is your resource editor, which is the same as the resource, and we'll come to that later. But basically what I wanted to show you is that you can add an icon to here. So instead of open, you can have, for example, a folders icon, and you can change that icon size from the toolbar's icon size. Okay, but the thing is, we just want to uncheck this so the toolbar is no longer movable. Let's just run that for a sec, and you can see you can click the open button, but the toolbar is no longer movable. So great. Okay, let's remove the toolbar and let's remove the menu bar, because our application is just gonna generate a number from 0 to 10. It's just gonna be a simple application, so we want it to be about this size. Now let's go back to the property editor of the main window, and we want to change the title to number generator. Okay, as you can see, that changed, and let's save that. So Control S to save, and save it into your project folder. So I'm just gonna go and delete this one and just save it as main. Yes, replace. So this is, at the moment, this is my GUI, very boring, does nothing. As you can see here, we still have actions in the action editor, because we did not delete these actions, but we deleted the bar that shows them. So we're just gonna click delete because we don't need them. Okay, now the second thing is I want to drag a button. So this is your widget box, which has pretty much everything from label to font box to drop box to everything that you ever need. So all the stuff is here. So I'm just gonna drag a boring button, put it here. I'm gonna also drag in a line edit or a text box, and you can set it the sizes from here, or you can set them from the property editor. So I'm just gonna eyeball things for now. Just drag that down here, make this button quite large. Now with the button, if you double click it, you can edit what the button says. So we're gonna say generate number. Very boring stuff, and let's run it for now. So you can see we can type things in the text box, we can press the button, but nothing happens. So what we want is to click this button and generate a number which shows in the text box. The thing is, at the moment we can write in that text box, but we don't want that text box to be writable. We want it to be just a read only. So we want it to show us a number, and we can copy that number, but we cannot change it. So we can click on the text box, come to the line, to the property editor, and click read only. And under that, you can see there's a section called placeholder text. Placeholder text is a text that can be overridden when you click on something. So for example, we're gonna say for username, okay, and let's run it. So at the moment, you see, without me hovering over the box or anything, it just says username, but it's faded. So if you click on it and start typing, it will disappear. This is really useful if you want to utilize text boxes to identify themselves, instead of using a label saying username and then a text box. So this is really helpful. For our purpose, we don't need that. I'm just gonna empty it. Okay, so the thing is, at the moment my stuff is kind of out of alignment. We can utilize this. We can click this grid box, which allows us to make things uniform. However, there's a problem with that. Is the grid is only useful if you have an application that you want to expand. So if you want, at the moment, if we expand this, see, my stuff stays in that corner because that's how it's designed for. But if we click here and click the grid, see, my objects have changed in size. Okay, and if we run the application and expand it, they expand with the window no matter what size it is. But we don't want that for this application. These pretty much are all useful in case you want to use want to create an application that expands with what you're looking at. So let's just cancel that. Yep. But what we can do is align these together by pressing that. But you can see as well that changes it to the size of the other object, which we don't want either. So keep in mind when using these, just to use them if you really need to use them. Otherwise, if you make like something like that, you have your grid lines that you can use as a reference, as well as your X and Y, which you can utilize and make things, uniform. Anyway, so let's continue with this one. So now our GUI looks okay. It's ready to be exported and used in Python, but the thing is, it's very, very boring. Now let's right click here. So if you click on any object and right click on it and go to change style sheet, you can change that object style sheet. But if you click on the main window or the main form or widget, if you right click it and click change style sheet, we can reference the button, we can reference all the elements in here into the main window. So that way all of our code to customize the button and customize the text edit box will be in one location. Okay, so let's say QPushButton, which we can get these names of each object. If you don't know, you just have to click on it and look at the property editor. So the name of this main menu is main menu, but its ID is QMainWindow. So that refers to any main menu or any main window, sorry. Okay, so for example, here we have QPushButton. That refers to any button. It does not refer to a specific button. This button itself is called push button, but its reference is QPushButton, and that refers to any button. If we drag 50 buttons and we say QPushButton and set the background to blue, all of them will be blue. Okay, so I'll show you that later, how to expand on it and specify a specific icon or a specific button. So this is QPushButton. If you click add color and we're gonna select color, that refers to text. So we want the text to be white, and we want to add a font. So we want to choose Ubuntu. I want it to be bold and about 10. Okay, if you get this little space, that doesn't matter, it still will work no matter what, but as long as it's between the parentheses. However, I like my code to be nice, so I will just delete that and I'll go down. So if we click apply right now, you can see it changed the text color and it changed the size and font, but the button has yet to change. So if we click add color again, we're gonna select background and we want it to be orange. Okay, and let me just delete that extra space and click apply. So now our button is orange. Okay, cool, but it still looks ugly. I don't like that. I want my button to be a bit round. Okay, so we are gonna specify its border. So we say border dash radius, and then we're gonna say, for example, I want it to be 10 pixels round. Okay, add this I don't know what they call them, semicolon. Just add that at the end to specify that this line has ended, so it works. If you don't add it, it doesn't do anything. So click apply and you can see our button now looks great. Okay, so that's really good. If you change your button to be, let's say 35, yeah, that's 35 round, and click it, see it becomes rectangle again. That because you are over specified. That means that it cannot go over 35. 35 is too much. Maybe let's say 25. Same thing. So maybe let's go 15. 15 should be okay, I guess. Yeah, see, 15 is round. But if you specify it too much, then it just ignores this line because it says no, you're wrong. Okay, so at the moment you can see we have our border, which looks really nice, but it has no color. Our border has been eliminated. We have no border at the moment. So if you want to specify a border, I never use this, but I'm just going to show you. So just say border, and then you say, for example, I want it to be 1 line thick, which is 1 pixel, and then you want it to be solid, or if you can do is dotted line or solid line. So we just use solid, and then the color of the line, so we say gray, or you can just go to add color and then select your color and just copy the HTML code. For example, let's just say copy that. Actually, let's make it red so it's easier to see. Let's just copy that, cancel, and instead of gray, just paste that number there and then your semicolon, click OK, and you can see we have a red line. Okay, or you could just say, for example, black. With most of these colors, black, red, white, I think green, you can just specify them and you can see we have our line. I hate borders, so I'm just gonna remove that. Click OK. So this looks really good. Let's run it. It looks really nice, But have a look at this. If you hover over the icon, if you press it, nothing happens. That's because we overrode all of its properties. Now we're saying we're customizing this icon, we ignore all the previous button stuff. Okay, so let's go back and change the style sheet. So what we have to do now is define what happens with hover. So we have our QPushButton, put 2 dots, and then we say hover. So now this will define what happens when we hover over the icon. Okay, let's just come down here and we want to change our background color. So add color, background color. We're gonna select the same color and choose something that is quite dark, so that way we can, you know, have a differentiate between hovering and clicking. Now with hover has been done, let's just select this again, paste it. So now we have 3 things. Instead of hover here, we're gonna change it to pressed. So this says the button normally looks like this. When you hover over it, it looks like this, and when you press it, it will look like this. So let's just change the background color of when it's clicked. So when it's clicked, I want it to be black. Okay, let's just change that little space that annoys me. Click OK. Now let's run it. So if you hover over it, changes color, and if you click it, it's black. Now you can see that your user can tell, oh, I clicked this button because it's changing color. It's really nice. Now let's go back and do something with the line edit. So this one is called QLineEdit, and you can get that from here as well. So line edit, that's our object name, and then its specific ID is that. So let's go QLineEdit, open parentheses and close them, and we want to say border radius 10 px is usually a perfect number. Click OK. So now it looks really nice. Again, we lost that border. If you want to add it, feel free. I'm gonna keep it like this because I really like it that way. It looks futuristic and modern. So what we want is to change the color as well. So we want the same color and font. Actually, we don't want the same color because the font is the same, but the color we want it to be black. So we're just gonna go color black. Okay. Now, because this is a read only, we can't type anything at the moment. So if we select it, come down here in the property editor, and we just untick read only, and let's type something here. Okay, let's run it. You can see because of our radius that we did with the border, something has happened. It looks like it's just, you know, touching the corners, or it's weirdly at the very edge. It doesn't look like it's supposed to do this. Okay, and I'll show you how to fix that. So let's go to change style sheet again, go down to line edit, and there's something called padding. So we're gonna say padding dash, and then you can choose top, bottom, left, right. So we are choosing from the left corner, and then we're gonna say, for example, 10 pixels. We want a padding of 10 pixels from the left. Apply, and you can see that the text has moved. I'm gonna remove this because we can change it, because our text right now, we're not gonna be using the left. We're gonna be changing it so that it's in the center. And if you leave the padding and change your text to be in the center, it will be 10 pixels from off the center, which annoys me. So I'm just gonna change that back to read only, and remove the text. So this looks great so far. I'm just gonna drag a label, which will be like our title. Okay, and we're gonna just scroll up here to the property editor of this label and come to font. This is just another way of how you can change the text. So I'm just gonna say this one about 10, and let's go down and center it and change it to number generator. Okay, so this is our number generator. Cool, let's save it and run it. So this is what our software looks like, but at the moment you can see we can still, you know, scale it, and it looks really weird. You can maximize it, and then look at it, it looks horrible. So what we're gonna do is click on the main window, come down to, should go up to here. So this is what the size of the window right now. So this is the width and height, and this is your minimum size. So the minimum is going to be 324, which is the same as that. So this will basically make it into a static size. It cannot be resized. And this is your maximum, so this will allow it to expand. So we're going to change it to same thing, so this will not allow it to expand to 94. Okay, now let's run it, and you can see now you can no longer expand it or change it, but still you'd have that maximize button. So what we want to do is change preferred to fixed, so that way says this program has a predefined size. It's not gonna change or expand or anything like that, you know. So great, now our application is almost ready. With every programming or graphical user interface, this is a really simple user interface, but with more complex user interfaces that you will be building, you might have 20 buttons. Okay, for example, you don't want all of them to be, let's say, orange, yeah. And the thing is, if you set a QPushButton to be orange, all of the QPush buttons will be orange. So let's drag another button, and you can see it just changed to orange by itself right away. Okay, so now that does not apply to everything. So for example, tool button has a different ID, and you can see it's not affected, but QPushButton is affected. So how do you fix that? So all you have to do is come to change style sheet, and this is the QPushButton. So this is all the buttons. We can specify a specific button by putting a hash and then writing the push button name. So this generate number is called push button. So push button. Okay, actually it's capital B. And click apply. And you can see now only that style applies to that push button. However, we have to do it here and as well here. We have to add the hash and put in the push button. Otherwise, what happens is, let's just click OK. When you hover over it, it will just change back to the old style or this style. Okay, so this is just how you do it. I'm just gonna remove that because I want my buttons always to be the same color, and so they look more uniform. Now the last thing we have to do is rename stuff, because here at the moment this is a simple program, but with complex programs you have to label your objects so that you can reference them in Python easily. So this is a label. This is not going to change. I'm not going to bother with labeling it. So with this one is going to be, for example, number display. Okay, and the push button is generate button. Okay, so this is the two things that I need to reference, and I need to know so I can reference them. Click save, and that's pretty much done.